We got a really big show today, folks. We got Alex Schleifer, we got Brian Morrissey, the one and only, and we have a big agenda.
Is that what you want me to do?
No, but there is such a thing as podcast voice. It's when people really put a lot of energy into it with like Casey Newton is the king of it.
Yeah.
This is Alex Schleifer from People versus Algorithms, and today we're talking about how Troy is always late.
I don't do that.
This is more indie.
Let's get started. I am Brian Morrissey, and Troy Young has arrived a bit late. Appreciate
Finally,
you squeezing us in, Troy. And Alex Schleifer. Alex and I have been catching up here. He's just back from Copenhagen, another failed European society.
I'm glad you guys had time to catch up, because when you first met in Meet Space, like after spending a lot of time together on podcasts, it was a little awkward. So
you can say this is my I'm awkward in person. This is
You're great on camera though. You guys should see AB's new digs, man.
Are they good?
Oh my God, it's great.
Does he have a cubicle for me?
Yes.
I would love to work in.
It's probably one of the few weird kind of brutalist buildings in the West Village. It's great.
Okay.
All right. So just to set up what we're going to talk about today, because we got some feedback.
I got a note from someone saying that it was all over the map last week.
I want to know who it is.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about performative reality, or the lack of reality in the information space. And we'll touch on a bunch of different things. But I really want to start with this sort of uncanny feeling that like the old internet is truly dead. And I went back to this Max Read 2018 piece about how much of the internet is fake. And at the time, that kind of fakeness was around bots, fake metrics, engagement fraud. And it was all side effects really of the optimization economy. But I think now it's gone deeper, and the internet itself is becoming synthetic. It is no longer a real place in many ways. AI, synthetic content has finally surpassed the content that is being created by humans. And I think we all sort of feel it in our souls, if you will. The line between fake and real keeps blurring. And perhaps even more disturbing, it might not even matter. And I think in this kind of environment, what I sort of hit on is that performance is really the organizing principle. And it's always performance in the service of a narrative. And that's why we're seeing, I think, institutional media lose ground continually. It's because there aren't experts at the performance aspect of it. And so they're losing ground to those that are. There was an article about how Trump has failed his administration with media figures, cable hosts, YouTubers, et cetera. And one of the MAGA meme lords had a good line in there. He said that it doesn't have to be true, it just has to go viral. I think we're seeing that across the board. So let's discuss this a little bit. Help me unpack what is going on. Troy, I know you have thoughts on this.
I have a half-baked thought, Brian. And it's not about whether it's happening or not. It's about what kind of world we're going to be living in. And that are our notions of fake versus real, or truth versus lies, are those becoming outdated ideas to describe how we navigate the world? And that has, the internet kind of through its evolutionary moments, from sort of, its document period, and then communications, and then social, and then became transactional. Now it's sort of your thought partner, and increasingly synthetic to, I think that there are people like Mark Zuckerberg that would like to make it ambient and all around us. And through all of that, more of our existence is sort of connected to the reality that is the internet. And I wonder if, the kind of idea that something is real or fake just stops mattering as it pertains. And what really matters is, do you see yourself in the narrative? And is it consistent with the story that you want to believe, or the one that fits with your sort of self-identity? And that's really all that matters. Obviously, there's the consequence of, fake versus real, when it comes to, many things in our world, whether it's, driving a car, guns or money or transactions. But like a big part of the place that is in any way related to kind of the importance of a story and interpretation of things in our world is becoming entirely subjective. And I just wonder how, like, we're not going back, right? So where does it go next is really what I'm trying to kind of get my head around. And is it just that, like, suddenly, the institutions and kind of moral system that we understood as defining a line between truth and fake kind of reigns supreme again because we get a new president or, something else happens? I don't know. I don't think so, actually. I think increasingly we, a big part of our lives are lived in this kind of narrative simulation. And we'll develop new language and understanding of what it means to live in that world. Now, I get that this is kind of an, like a fuzzy idea, but I think it's actually an interesting thing to try to understand.
Yeah, Alex, you're in the video game world, and I think for those of us who are just getting immersed in this, what do we have to expect? Because I do feel like I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I increasingly feel like we're living in some kind of video game to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and then also I wonder sometimes if we're not, to play devil's advocate here, if we're not overreacting and we're overreacting to something that is potentially going to happen and we don't really understand it because it's changing. But I feel that in some ways, like, we have become disconnected from reality, right? We're experiencing a lot of things behind the screen, but that used to happen in the 80s. And I feel like in the 80s, I didn't have a direct connection with the people creating my content. I didn't have any sort of relationship with them. I didn't have any sort of access to them. And yes, we were seeing Sora 2 and we're seeing all this kind of AI slop take over your Instagram feed. But I wonder how much impact these things have in general, right? I feel like in general, I have more authentic relationships with the media figures that I follow. And that seems to be the case even with younger generations where, however, like, you can look into like the kind of the biochemistry of the brain and what it does to us for kids to spend time on Fortnite or in front of their phones. A lot of that stuff remains like kind of partially social experiences. So I wonder, like, I've been thinking about that a lot, and I keep kind of plotting this line where I end up in a world that Troy is describing, which doesn't matter if it's true or false. The only thing that matters is if the fiction talks to you in a meaningful way and you feel included in it. But at the same time, I think that, whatever seems to be happening now, like, I also have way more direct connection, more meaningful connections with the people who create my media, both directly and indirectly, right? So it's interesting.
So for now, right? I mean, Michael Mignano, who I believe is a VC at Lightspeed, he had a good Substack in which he wrote about the next phase being that creators will be replaced, that the platforms, first they disempowered media companies because you can easily shove around millions of individuals, so much easier than like whiny organized media companies that use their political capital against these tech companies. So they're like, yeah, let's go into the creator economy. But you're seeing, at least, and this is his argument, that instead of relying on individuals, right, that we talk about a lot to supply the content, well, they're just going to supply the content that is synthetically. Mr. Beast has like talked about this being like a major threat to the creator economy. And I don't know, maybe we live in a time when everyone is just paranoid because of the increasingly insane predictions about AI as they light on fire more and more money. But his point was, we're now entering the third and final phase of social media. Platforms love distribution efficiency because it drives consumption. And in this third phase, they're guaranteed to get it. As generative models improve, platforms will pair on-the-fly content creation with algorithmic distribution. Instead of sourcing from creators, they can create content tailored to individual preferences at scale. Production shifts from human to synthetic.
Right. So it went, I mean, this is the thing, right? This is and there's new data coming out of Meta from court filings that shows that, we've known that social networks it was about talking to your friends and family, right? Then it went to following celebrities. Then it went to following everything and from everyone. And Meta just revealed that only 17% of time spent on Facebook today is content from friends. And so, maybe that's not astonishing, but it's like down.
Yeah, because they're not showing it. I mean, go figure.
100%. I mean, and they're showing this data to prove that they're not the dominant social media platform, because they're no longer social media. They're just media, right? So they're disavowing the social network term. And I think that, like, does that mean that interaction is just pushed to other creators, which could be fine, right? Which could be real, or is there this third phase where the push becomes fully synthetic, because that's the most, that's most efficient for them to just generate stuff that they put in front of you. This is never connected.
I don't know, man. I think it's a good question. Nothing becomes fully anything in media, but have you guys played with Sora? Brian, have you played with it?
No.
So just a couple comments, because I used it for the first time yesterday. The onboarding is remarkably easy. You take a picture of yourself, turn your head left and right, and then you read 3 numbers on the screen, which is apparently enough for it to get your articulation, your mouth movements, and your voice. So the onboarding literally takes, 30 seconds. I then started prompting it to make videos of me rapping, and I made Fat Troy.
So with a PH?
Just F.
Oh, okay.
And I'll share them with you. My wife then took them and sent them to all of our friends back in Saskatchewan, which I think that they were basically indistinguishable from reality, other than I had gained like 75 pounds. It was kind of funny. And I've heard from multiple people that they spent days with friends in the last week or so making these Cameo fueled AI video.
Cameo is their term for like a copy version of you that they can use.
Yeah, and then another product insight was that I can take your Cameo and build it into my video, so I can prompt around you and around myself. And I think that the most sort of addictive and powerful force in the media world is always you, right? It's you starring in. It's content about you. And, social media kind of proved that, right? Like everybody wants to be in the show. I mean, listen, there's always going to be times I still listen to vinyl and I'll still watch long form content and we'll go to movies and stuff like that. But more and more and more of it, you just have to look at it over a longer arc and imagine a world where these tools, become so sophisticated that we can, prompt machines to make incredible visual, accurate worlds.
Yes.
And we star it. And there's so little friction in it, Brian. It's not just the onboarding. It's like I can give it a vague prompt and it'll write me singing, rapping a song. It'll write the song.
This sounds very wholesome and enjoyable and really great for engagement. Unrelated news, ChatGPT is opening itself up to what Sam Altman chastely calls erotica. So now combine that with this move.
Well, I think they're related, and I thought that was interesting for just the simple observation that people talking in sort of intimate and therapeutic ways to chatbots is a huge use case for these guys. Massive. So much so that they needed to put the guardrails on, but they really needed to circle back and make sure it could be used for that use case.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like necessarily a healthy step with the loneliness epidemic and the various other epidemics for this to, I don't think anyone saw this, maybe some pervs, and said, oh, wow, this is great. This is tremendous.
No, and we saw it that when they released ChatGPT 5, they kind of nerfed the ChatGPT's attitude and just personality and turned it more into a tool. And a lot of people hated that. And I think, I think that we're going to get tools of creation that provide like no friction, the ability with no friction to create pretty extensive works, right? And whether or not you want to call them that or not is a different story. Now, I wonder, first of all, like when there's an abundance of everything, like where's the value? Like
the value is in whatever is scarce.
Yes, and you know, making movies in the early days of cinema was really easy. All you had to do was shoot a fucking train coming to the station, and that was your avatar of the summer, right? Like people would line up to see train arriving at the station. And then it was like, wow, this one has sound and this one has color, and everybody kind of expressed themselves creatively through that and tried to tell new stories. Now there's going to be just an explosion of tools, and I think we're kind of leapfrogging to a stage where at least a certain type of media content will be zero friction and zero cost. Now that is, if the economics keep working out, because I don't believe the economics work out. I think there's like so much, these companies are burning through so much money, and it's unclear whether or not they can make advertising work.
The economics of who? The AI platforms, the power.
The AI platforms. I think this.
I wouldn't worry about that.
I worry, right? Because the numbers we're talking about, we're not subsidizing Uber here. Like it's way bigger than that, and we're talking about trillions of dollars spent on. And companies like NVIDIA, investing in companies that buy NVIDIA cards and all that type of stuff. I think there's potentially like this could be the golden age where we feel like, remember when we could all generate this for free? But let's say it keeps going. Let's say we don't worry about it. I think the thing that Sora did that's really clever is that they made it all about yourself, right? And what Meta didn't, because Meta has no taste or no understanding of like how people are, Meta did something similar. They jammed it into the AI site and they just let people prompt generative video, and they thought that would be it. But by focusing in on like, hey, create your own content, they created a lot more value, because then you're technically the one that can create your own content unless you explicitly allow others to do so, and you put it out there. So there's value for you, which is a great place to start. And then there's value for your friends, and maybe it goes beyond that. So I think there is a real future for this type of content. But the question is like, what does that do to authenticity and all of these things? Are we just going to be completely like immune to that? Because the strange thing that's happening alongside this, guys, is that shows like the nightly shows, like traditional TV, are actually losing out because people are finding these shows really inauthentic, and they'd rather listen to some guy with a bad mic talk about the news on a podcast, right? So I know we're seeing technology and media go one way, but at the same time, we also see culture bifurcating and going totally towards authenticity, to the point that like things that are overproduced aren't performing as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I wonder where it balances out.
Yeah, one data point on that with the numbers working on it. The FT got a hold of some financials of OpenAI. They're going to do $13 billion in revenue this year, which is pretty good, right? The problem is they're going to spend about $1 trillion on compute.
They're not going to spend $1 billion this year. They're going to
in the next 10 years. In the next 10 years. So like they got to make those numbers work. And it's an interesting point that you make, Alex, about like what passes as sort of authenticity in this kind of environment. I've been using, do you know Lex? I've been using that AI editing tool. It's basically like a word, right? But like a word program, but Google Docs, but you can also use it it's like, oh, check it for brevity, for grammar, for repeating and stuff. And so I use it. I'm like, okay, great. Like I don't have an editor, and I would rather not to use the passive voice and whatnot. And the end result of it, though, even just that, it's almost like I read it and I'm like, yeah, this is good. It just doesn't sound like me as much. So I don't know if that's just me being.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the economic bet of our lifetimes, Brian, and the way that I look at it, and there isn't, I don't know whether it's $1 trillion or more collectively across the hyperscalers and everyone in the industry that's going to fund, a new set of infrastructure to power, this kind of new modality of computing that we're all really excited about. But in the end, someone pays for it, right? And you have to believe, and I think, you know, there's bears and bulls on it, right? You got to believe that either consumers will find it deliriously either useful or entertaining such that they'll pay $20 a month for it.
Only 5% do right now for OpenAI.
Okay, so let me keep going. That you know, Walmart today was announcement today. It was Shopify 2 weeks ago, and Etsy the same week. That more and more and more commerce will be. They've dumped their catalogs effectively into the AI, into ChatGPT in partnership with OpenAI, and that environment will become a nexus for commerce. And if it does, it's worth a whole lot of money. And they're clearly, in that case, just taking money from, from television, from media broadly, and from Google, right?
Yeah.
And that increasingly, you can break it down like by class, different types of workers, right? So like the service industry will find that either, they'll use AI to be materially more efficient in how they deploy people to solve problems, such that AI will capture more and more and more of the value, right? Whether it's in healthcare or in marketing or in consulting or in the legal profession, like huge swaths of labor essentially will be augmented by AI, and that value will be captured. And that, all of those use cases, and I'm sure there are others, just all add up to a huge amount of money that's going to pay for all these new data centers. And I think that my learning would tell me that America's a pendulum nation. Everything always swings too far one way or the other, that inevitably there will be an unconstrained deployment of capital, which will, be used irresponsibly by many, but that compute will be absorbed, and it'll be absorbed in economic ways ultimately. And really what's happening is there's a bunch of people in Silicon Valley, including like ex-Googlers, that are whispering in Sam Altman's ear, saying to him, listen, now is your time. This is what happened to Google. And when you're in a position where you have the attention of the world and 800 million users, you go hard.
On everything.
And you go hard on everything. And you made the point last week in the email, Alex. You go hard on everything, and it's time to do it now. And it's okay because, by the way, the capital you're taking is very inexpensive because your valuation is so high. So you can make all kinds of crazy deals and go nuts. And listen, through this process, the uninformed or the people that don't have the same insight or sophistication or whatever, many people will get burned, but this compute will be absorbed in some shape or form. That would be my take.
Yeah. And I think there's an inevitable path to OpenAI becoming a better Google. And by that, I mean, yes, it will subsume like a lot of stuff that TV does and things like that. But like it is already, it's a better Google. It's a better Google to search, to shop. So they're building all this tooling in. Now, when it comes to creating media, I think we've already seen it change things. But I wonder, like, people use a lot of different tools, right? Like I know that there's often this talk of like when you start seeing a trajectory where companies starting to consume all the different parts of our lives, that you think that in the future, everything will become subsumed with this way of doing things. And and at the same time, we've seen like how people use different tools all the time, right? People experience media in different ways. There's things aren't entirely linear like that. And the real thing, and because when we're talking about authenticity, I don't care about authenticity when it comes to, hey, find me this, magnetic MagSafe battery pack that will fit my phone and work with my case. Like that, I don't care, right? But the question is like, how much of our time engaged with media or with screens or whatever is going to be spent with content that is authentic, non-generated, and real, right? Because we're hearing people warning us about the dead internet theory, right? That like most content on the internet is going to be bots talking to bots. That Sora scaring the shit out of everyone.
You got to be more specific because that's a stupid idea. I'm sorry. Like,
but it doesn't.
As soon as it's bots talking to bots, no one will use it. But people will use, generated entertainment that stars them and their friends, and that will take up spectrum from everyone else. There's no doubt about it. That is going to happen. That is definitely going to happen.
Absolutely.
And the idea that like, suddenly the internet is useless is ridiculous.
I agree with you.
It's nonsense. It's people that it's just contrarians trying to get attention.
I think the people that are mostly scared and why a lot of this stuff is getting a lot of media attention is that it'll change moats, right? It'll change moats. Like, honestly, like being a great English speaker that can write and knows all the vocabulary is a moat. Being a Hollywood studio that can allocate $100 million towards a movie is a moat. Being a broadcaster that has, radio channels is a moat. Like all of these moats are going away. And so what happens, I no longer need a team. I can create all this stuff, right? And we're seeing this with YouTube creators are worried about it. Like, people like MKBHD create these like elaborate setup, like high production values. They use expensive cameras. They use color correction. They use all that stuff, right?
That's
and all that stuff's going on
because they were triumphant when they disrupted, old badly institutional media.
The disruptor is always
someone's making it easier and faster than them. Listen, humans
yes.
We reroute the system around shit that doesn't work. It's already happening with broken web pages. When I see video players and all kinds of bullshit on a web page, I root around it. And that's why email became important. And that's why Substack became important. And that's why Instagram continues to be important. And so we just root around it and we find other stuff. And on the I'm just saying on the entertainment front, if I was going to short anybody, I would short Hollywood and I would go long on AI entertainment.
Okay, so you think that just takes out entertainment time from...
I don't think anything takes out anything. I think that it just reduces the amount of time and it disrupts the...
Well, that's what I mean. I don't mean it takes it out like zero. I'm just saying there's only so much time that people necessarily have. I think it seems like these AI answer engines are actually adding to search. So it's actually additive.
Yes.
Like the search markets become bigger.
Yes.
And that's why I think Google is going to go fully into... the AI overview.
The legacy that I was
entertainment?
focused on that I did a bad job of articulating before is that we are in fact living in a post-truth world, Brian. And I think that the lasting legacy of Trump and the way the internet has changed us all creating and being in our own narratives is that in all the places where we used to rely on the integrity of fact and narratives, that's going away.
But come on, it's not going away.
It's badly wounded, Brian.
I mean, maybe the web pages are going on.
I mean, it's a continuum, right? Like on the far side, you have facts from the government that you may or may not believe. In the middle, you have the Financial Times and maybe the New York Times or something that you do believe, maybe if you don't put bias into the equation. And on the far side, no. Further down, you have the New York Post that writes so heavily towards a point of view that you can't fucking believe anything they're saying anyway. And then on the far right, you have fucking TikTok videos.
I believe so. I would say I ran into the CEO of the New York Post this morning, Sean. It's a good guy.
But did you feel
they had the Hunter Biden laptop? Give them their laurels. You didn't believe that?
Well, I think at the end of the day,
I thought I had a good theory.
No, it's not a bad theory, and it could go down that path. And I think it's a pretty nihilistic and maybe I'm surprised you came up with this because you actually love people, but it implies that people just want to, get what they feel is true and is kind of celebrates themselves. And
it's partly that, Alex, and it's partly you also have to remember that the distribution piece, which is algorithmic and personalized, is a big part of the kind of breakdown in what used to be facts and institutions. Because it's not just that content's being created. It's not just that our perception of truth is subjective increasingly. It's that we're all living in little, tubes of that are personalized to our points of view. It's really a fragmentation too.
Right. But at the same time, I mean, just probably being overly optimistic here, as algorithms and AI tools increase, they might be able to better get you to the truth rather than you having to jump through.
Holy shit, what is happening here? You be me for a while and I'll be you. Great.
Because I do find it's hard because we get politics involved, right, and everything like that. But let me just it's hard to, let's go back to commerce, which is maybe less loaded. I don't feel like I'm being given the truth when I search on Amazon. I don't feel that this is a genuine experience that is targeted at getting me the truth, right? I don't trust the reviews anymore. I don't trust the first results.
I don't trust Reddit, and neither do these AI engines anymore, because everything gets gamed on the internet.
Yeah, but I find that using my AI, I can kind of prompt it into a specific direction that gets me to a better truth, and I have done better purchases from that, right? Like
I don't believe that there's any truth in there, and I don't believe there ever was.
Hang on, I saw this Instagram ad for this special type of screwdriver that has this magnetic lock on it. Is this good? Is it a scam? Yes, these screwdrivers are good. Here's the actual brand that created it first. All these Instagram things are a lie. Here's some Reddit posts about it. Here's some forum posts about it. Like that would be research that is impossible for me to do. And I do believe that I got to a truth that is better than what I saw on Instagram, better than what Amazon showed me, better than what the first result of Google was, because I applied my own lens to it. And I think this is where I don't think AI is by definition obfuscates the truth, right? Now it can manipulate the truth, but I think that because you control it much more than a Google search result or Amazon search result, in this case, I think I got to the truth better. And I don't think it's a linear path towards everything being fake. Now, here's the thing, what I think is definitely going to happen, and I don't know what AI video actually is. I think everything's going to be AI video. Your camera on your iPhone right now is AI video. Nothing you shoot on your camera is an actual real scene. Everything's been modified. When you zoom into something, your skin tone, the color of the sky, everything, right? And I think that's going to happen more and more. I think there's going to be more and more influencers that use more and more filters to light their room or make their sound better. That's kind of in the, the kind of more innocuous side of it. And then all the way to changing their face and their voice and then gender and whichever way they want to say whatever type of message. The amount of ads that are fully generated by AI that look like some podcast that I get on Instagram is crazy.
Can I be an old person here for a minute? Who wants this?
Nobody.
Aren't we just assuming?
Can you be more specific, Brian? Who wants what?
Well, this world that you're painting, where nothing is tangible, it's impossible to understand what's real. To me, the opportunity for let's say someone in media is to simply exit, is to exit trying to make sense in this world and to build and to play a different game. I just think that there's more, maybe I have more faith in human agency, that a lot of people will reject being immersed in this ambient world of fakeness. I just don't. Yeah, fine. I'd love to see your Fat Troy, hip hop video.
What are you talking about? You see Fat Troy every week. Bye-bye.
But
I really want
I'm not going to live in that world.
I'm almost tempted to have Alex put it up. You want to see it, guys? We'll do it right now.
I'm happy to see it, and I'm sure it's very amusing. But the idea that is going to be my world is ridiculous.
Alex, you're literally going to go nuts because you're going to like it so much.
If I'm the last person on the earth reading a book, I'm going to be that person.
But I'm sure it's very fun. But we've had lots of little fun moments. And I'm sure it's fantastic. Look, here's the thing.
Jab was fun. Help yourself. Great.
Well, by the way, the Jib Jab guys, just the Spirit Ellis brothers, that's what I think they're called. They got funding for an AI animation studio.
I wrote many articles about Elf Yourself. It was a seminal moment of microsites.
This is better, but you're right. It's the same spirit.
It's a similar spirit for sure. But the conversation actually is, I think, more interesting when we talk about scarcity, right? Brian, you mentioned that the train coming to the station, right? Now, once 5 people managed to shoot trains coming into the station, that had no value anymore. And I do think that we're going to bump against the scarcity issue really, really quickly when it comes to this stuff, because we get bored incredibly easy. It's amazing, even just seeing, there's something in video games that happens, and I don't know if it's been studied, but you watch something in 20 2005, you would walk into somebody playing the latest NFL football game, and parents and stuff like walking into their kids' room thought that they were watching actual TV, right? Because the graphics were so close and mind-blowing. Those same people, if you watch that today, your brain has been completely refactored into seeing this as looking completely fake and polygonal and stuff like that. And so our ability to adapt to things and adjust to things and seek scarcity and try to find something that doesn't look like stuff that came before it, I think we cannot underestimate that.
So
it's a pretty huge.
Do you know the term Anemoia? It is a term that it's nostalgia for a period you never experienced before.
Oh yes, I wrote about this. Yes,
yeah,
it's a great word.
And this afflicts a lot of young people apparently. And there's something there, I believe, and that's why I keep going back to real experiences. When I had a breakfast earlier today with a lot of publishing executives, and it's remarkable to me how much they've almost just given up on websites and web pages. I mean, they still operate that business. They still want to eke out as much as they can from traffic and whatnot. But all they're talking about is doing events, doing tent poles, doing franchises.
Isn't this a little bit like the movie studios, stars of the silent era, not knowing what the fuck to do when sound came on, and they were we've had these moments over and over where a technology shifts and people are left completely, wrong-footed as to how to handle it. And instead, it should be but wait, you guys are media creators. The tools are becoming so much better. You should only have amazing websites, but in fact, they only see well, this website that we created that was, made for the world 5 years ago is no longer working. So let's throw everything out and, everything, the digital side of things is dead. So let's shift completely entirely into real world experience. People, it's a huge lack of imagination, I'm finding, because in fact, people's demands for media is bigger than ever. I think people end up reading more, watching more, consuming more stuff. They need stuff of all types of quality. Sure, you hear data about kids just being stuck to AI slop 8 hours a day, but that's because there's nothing really competing with it at this moment. So I don't know. I think we're in a weird time, but I feel like people get bored.
Yeah. Just guys watch. I mean, one of the great ways to watch platform shifts and their effect on culture and people is U.S. elections. So you'll recall, 6 years ago and the election before it that was, and Brian, you'll know more about this than me, but it was the Twitter election, right? And this was, I don't know, the podcast election or the TikTok election. Let's just see what happens with fake content in the next election and with things like
it's got a messy few years, right?
It's going to be mayhem.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
what I'm curious about, and we may never resolve it on this podcast, is where do we go next, and what is a resting point that's reasonable? Because we had a kind of semblance of agreement around institutional kind of trust for many, many, many years. And now we've been subject to these kind of platform changes that have steadily eroded at that. And I just wonder where, is the next election and is our next reality entirely performative? Do new media brands like Facts Inc. or Trust Inc. or, the ones that are already scaled, like a Times or Journal or whatever, become bigger and more important to us? Where does it land next is kind of what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good point. This is a pendulum country, and the pendulum will swing back. I think, when they talk about trust, I left that breakfast and then I huffled over to moderate a panel at these news fronts, which is trying to get advertisers to spend money on with news publishers. Trust gets, you can do a drinking game based on how many times trust gets thrown around.
Right.
And meanwhile, you've got these AI.
It's Jess Sibley's favorite word at times.
Yeah, these AI engines, which are notorious for literally making shit up. Forget about actual, bias or any of these sort of qualitative things. They just make things up all the time. We all experience that. But the real trust issue falls to these publishers. And I think this is part of what I was talking about, the performative internet. Like, conspiracies are really good narratives, right? And so I think conspiracies were always fun. I always found them fun. But now it's become baked into the media ecosystem. And so I think that is like part of people thinking there's a hidden hand behind everything, when it's usually just, incompetence and just regular human frailties. And it's just ironic to me that the trust falls on, institutional news publishers, but people trust Sam Altman created AI. Like, that seems very strange to me. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. It's that, like, it's just like, extend out the Trump stuff. It's like the Epstein files are, not an issue. Forget about it. We're moving on. Or, any fact that's inconvenient is discarded. Anyone that works with your narrative is, and then people believe it, or they don't believe it. They don't care that it's.
I mean, I think if you look at, I think part of the issue is like we're kind of, it's surprisingly, even though we have access to so much media, like we're drowning in media that is making us feel that what he's saying is working. Like, statistics show that it's probably not working, and that a lot of people don't believe it anymore. Statistics show that a lot of these, like, kind of conspiracy theories that hit the mainstream actually lose steam once they hit the mainstream, right? Like, you kind of need to be the underdog, and it needs to be so. This stuff all ebbs and flows. I'm really interested.
Alex, but I would encourage you to think about it differently, and it would just be that there used to be this tension between the administration and the media, right? Where there was a check process. That check doesn't exist anymore because one just completely disregards, one just makes up its own narratives and disregards the checkpoint of the other.
Oh, that's happened. Yes.
Right. Anyway,
I would actually argue that is a playbook that the technology industry overall is using. Honestly, good luck finding Mark Zuckerberg giving an interview to quote unquote institutional mainstream media, whatever you want to call it. He's on every other podcast. He'll go on like TBPN, friendly outlet, whether they're just friendly for tech or because it's in their interest. I admire it, whatever. They've got like 300, viewers of it.
Is it?
And they're like, just, there was just this Josh Kushner, who's never been like really like out there. They just had this massive profile that dropped. And like another friendly outlet, Colossus, they're creating their own media ecosystem of safe spaces that they go that have the trappings of journalism, of capital J journalism. It looks like it. It tastes like it, but it's qualitatively different. Now, whether that works in the marketplace, I guess we'll find out.
I mean, I think the irony of it is that, like, right now, I think we have these two kind of massive bodies of waters that are hitting each other, which is one, we still have a population, including ourselves, where whether we want to or not, still has trust in media, or enough trust in media to talk about the distrust of media, right? Or the changes in it. Mm-hmm. And then you have people that have figured out that they can hack these norms and create their own media channels, because people still look at, like, the irony is, like, Rogan says stuff saying, don't trust the media, while he's the media, right? Like, he's bigger than CNN, right? And I think at some point, like, I wonder is that, are people going to get like a little bit more immune to these kind of norm breaking things, right? Because it does feel a little bit like these hacks work on people who are still living in a world where media means something, where, you talk about doing your own research, but your own research is listening to the most popular podcast in the world. And that over time, like, we shift the way we consume media. And that's the thing that we're having a really hard time trying to grok, is like, what does the future media consumer look like? The person that's never born in the time where, like, news used to mean something. You used to turn on CNN and stuff used to mean something. Well, you used to go to the train station and look at the bulletin board. If somebody had, printed something and put it on there, that probably meant it was true. But you would never believe something's, glued to the wall of a train station today. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody's becoming more hardened.
Those are great points, Alex. The thing it made me think is that in a society of deep polarization, either one side is, reading the world differently, or they're misrepresenting the facts, or they have a completely different kind of moral compass.
Yeah.
And I think that when you add this deep polarization to media fragmentation, and then add on that the idea that truth is fungible, which is really what's happening, you get even more polarization, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that
There's
also,
nothing
like, some of this can be overplayed, right? Like Stagwell they own the Harris poll, and they did a survey that just came out today. And, the headline is 85% of young people get their news from social media. Okay. Well, guess what? The least trusted sources of news are social media influencers and social media stories. So, the ones that are viewed as the most biased are social media influencers.
Yes.
I mean, they're over national politicians. Where people trust the most are friends and family. Local TV does really well, and local newspapers and websites. So,
right. And also social media often means a clipping from an existing media source or somebody that Like, I have people I know personally who share stuff on Instagram about the news that they watch, and that's how I receive news. But it's essentially like I'm getting it from a friend.
Yeah, and I think
so there's also that.
What I think is actually maybe hopeful is where interests align is, you look at what OpenAI is doing with apps in ChatGPT. And I was doing something in there, and they just had a little teeny pop-up that said, do you want to do it in Figma? It's one of the apps they have. I think that what they will clearly find is that they're going to be publisher. Why would there not be a publisher app store in there? Like where I would want, you talked about, verifying it with your credentials. I would want them to be drawing from publisher apps. I don't think I'm alone in that. And maybe this world that you're talking about, Alex, comes to be.
No, full app-like content integration into the chatbot would be great.
So Sam Altman, if you're listening.
This is why the prompting, I think, going back to my search when I'm looking for a store, the prompting, I was saying here are the sources that I wanted you to pay attention to. Don't pay as much attention to these sources because I don't trust them. It's impossible to do searches like this in Google. And I do feel like it's not black or white, I think oddly enough, in this kind of generative world, it might be easier to pull back the veil of some of the bullshit that the natural structure of the internet has created, which was you go to Google, you end up whoever had the best SEO, and you read the thing, and then that's the thing you do, right? And I don't think that's particularly healthy. I think it's way healthier going to a computer and say, hey, computer, here's the nuance of what I want to get. And that might actually source more truth. Then second to that, I think that if everything becomes fudgeable, I don't think the issue is going to be with a bunch of fake content. It's going to be the fact that nobody trusts the content anymore. Nobody sees a handsome dude on TikTok and thinks that guy isn't using filters, right? So what does that create? It actually creates a low trust society, but at the very least, one that doesn't just believe everything they see online. And I think that's going to be the massive change. And so if you can differentiate yourself by having an audience that trusts you and then trusts what you create and maintaining that trust, I think that's going to be hugely valuable. Because if anything, I think the flooding of fake content is just going to make us not believe anything we see, which is actually healthier than anything. But right now we still live in a world where if I go on Facebook, there are people that I know who will like a picture of shrimp Jesus or a baby. A baby in India that's carving a fucking Jesus statue with using a tiny little baby chainsaw, right? And then a boomer saying this is so beautiful. Kids used to be so talented. I'm like, this is fake, but
is that in your network?
People will be allowed.
Who was it, Alex? Who was it?
You're very anti-boomer.
Parents of friends. Parents of friends. I'm just going to.
All right.
But
AB is on right now. Do you want to, as a break? AB has a theory that rich people want to own media, so he wants.
Let's bring him on.
I kind of got annoyed with him in the car because I said, "Of course."
Did you drive?
I mean,
yeah.
I'm gonna while we wait for AB, I'm gonna put Fat Troy rapping. Here he is.
Up in the block with the corduroy stripes, middle-aged vibe, but my energy's high. Whether the winter survived in the rain, rhythm still running like blood in the veins. Glasses catch light when I'm dropping these facts. Little bit of belly, but the flow stays.
Yeah, no, this is incredible.
You should
Yeah,
go.
it's
The
incredible.
feature is going to be in the cinema soon.
Okay.
It's incredible.
I'm gonna try to resist the slop as much as I can. But
I'm
That's
just going
me.
to keep making some.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun.
It was amazing.
No, it was
It's
great.
really amazing. Oh, AB. AB is
is
here.
your hair different?
No, it's like not gelled perfectly.
No, he's doing young Steve Bannon.
Yeah, it does have a little.
It is funny. Steve Bannon started his career at Goldman Sachs. It is a random fact.
Oh, everything makes sense now.
Yeah. So, AB, I heard that you made a startling discovery, which is that rich people like to buy media properties.
That's what Troy said. He said it wasn't an original idea.
Do tell me how you came upon.
I did,
upon
yeah,
this.
but good enough for a podcast. No?
I mean, it's not. I think that it's not like a discovery. It was more. Everyone keeps asking who's like the next Skydance, Paramount, who's going to keep buying media companies, and a lot of the natural sort of incumbents that are publicly traded, or even some of the family-owned media companies like Hearst and Condé Nast, I think they've moved away from active M&A. And so the point I was making is that if you look to some of these tech founders who've accumulated a lot of capital and a lot of value, could be some of the more active people buying that because they're the best position because their main companies make a lot of money. And so the toys that they have are part of the ecosystem, the content platforms they have, they want to probably add to them. So that was the point I was making.
I think that's actually a really good point. And I mean, we've seen it with sports team, but I do know folks here that have made an incredible amount of money and actually wish that they were running something as fun as a media company. Because at some point,
it's
right, like your
nothing
SaaS
but-
product and whatever, isn't that fun as running a media company and
No,
hanging
it's
out
not
with
fun
like
at all.
Charlize and whatever, like that's great. I mean, there's probably a hint of Apple doing that, right? Like, because, it doesn't really make that much sense, right? But man, they want to hang out with Brad Pitt at the F1 track. So
What's y'all
some of
saying? The
these
best
assets are
way to
pretty
have the best way to have a small fortune is to start with a big fortune and buy a media company.
yeah.
Something
Or maybe
like
it's
that.
like boats, though.
You want to break it down a little? You want to break it down a little further for us, AB, because you're an analytical person.
Sure. I mean, so you just give a couple examples, right? So, and these are going to be, they're obvious ones, but it's like most of these tech folks have some sort of angle of people consuming content on their platform or adjacent, right? So the simple ones, Zuckerberg with Instagram, Bezos with Prime Video and Twitch, the Google guys with YouTube, Jeff Bezos, as you pointed out, Brian, with the Washington Post.
You forgot to add Washington Post in the text message to me.
Yeah. And so
Not a good sign for the Post.
it's not a good or bad. That's kind of an example of a tack-on acquisition that's not core to what Amazon is doing. They tried to have the technology platform, the CMS platform that didn't really scale. But I think more and more, and obviously Paramount, is like, if they have a way to monetize the consumer at a much more significant level, I don't see Instagram buying necessarily content. You could see them in the future going after sports rights, because if you can feel this in the feed of Instagram, is there's more and more video. There's a lot of suggested people to follow, and they're really pushing video because it makes more money. And so because this all goes back to, everyone keeps asking me who's going to be buying the next set of these up and coming fast growth media companies. And I think we have to look to the tech platforms and their, whatever you want to call them, their appendage media company or appendage audience as sort of the route to finding who's going to be doing the next set of deals.
Give me like 3 up and coming media companies that are going to be very valuable in 3 to 5 years in this environment.
What do you mean? Oh, like specifics?
Yeah, like literally companies. I'm interested.
That's the secret sauce. Why don't we talk at a high level? So I'll give you a better way of answering this question. So I believe you'll see the larger media companies going after YouTube channels in mass. Like, they'll either figure out how to turn them on themselves, like real channels, we've talked about this before, the shoulder content. We've talked about, and if you want specificity, it's like the golf YouTube channels and what's happening there is really interesting. And so you could see someone like an ESPN wanting to go get that audience and
Good point.
basically monetize them in a different
Kind of
way. Or
happened
like a
maybe yesterday with Spotify and Netflix and their podcast broadcast on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that we're negative on some of these smaller magazine companies, but I do think it's a valuable way, depending on what media company or what enterprise you are, to basically get advertising in the hands of consumers that are already adjacent to your events and things like that. So that's not big M&A, but I can see that happening. And then this, like the easy one is the newsletter. It doesn't need to be a Substack. It could be a Beehive. It could be someone that just has built up a large list that's doing it themselves. But I think more and more media, because think about these headwinds with organic traffic. They're like very sizable. And if you have all this advertising demand and you're like, oh my goodness, our traffic dropped again 5% this month. It's the simplest way because the frequency behind the newsletters allows you to have a lot of sellable inventory. It's the easiest way to basically attach it. And you probably are going to get synergies because your sales team, if you're a bigger media company, can sell that and has already sold that at a higher CPM.
I agree with you. You know, I have a friend who has a very large Substack and is currently being pursued by a tier one investment bank and a tier one kind of media focused private equity company. And I think that those are a good place to look for signal as to what, you know, how companies will follow with their corp dev efforts.
Oh, one thing is that this actually fits in with the post-truth internet, because I had no idea what Alex was talking about when he mentioned Hasan Piker.
Hasan Piker, yeah.
And some dog. I didn't even know. I vaguely knew who Hasan Piker was. He's like a sort of
He's a liberal.
resistance Joe Rogan kind of character.
Yeah, left wing, but also controversial.
So there was a
kind of
controversy about him putting a shock collar on his dog. And I was like, okay, this sounds like a typical controversy. But then there was a counter controversy about it not being true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
This is exactly it. I'm just
What do you want to believe,
like,
Brian? What do you
I
want to
don't need
believe?
it. I don't need it.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? And the thing that's coming up now, which I thought was kind of so his dog's always in the shot. There's a shot of the dog leaving his because he's like just streaming. He's an ex
He's a Twitch
gaming
guy,
streamer,
right?
potentially a Twitch streamer. But the dog leaves, and then you see him pick something up and press it, and you hear the dog yelp in the corner and come straight back down to sit down, which is like, all right, he did it or not? He denied it. He denied that he had a shock collar. Then he says, yes, I have a shock collar, but it's only set to vibrate. You know, it kind of like, but the thing I thought like,
I'm going to do a video of my wife putting a shock collar on me.
But the thing where it ties well to this conversation we had about authenticity, and also it ties back to AB's, you know, people want to buy media companies so that they can control the narrative. They want to have their audiences. They want to attach themselves to power and all of these things. But there is a pretty massive counter movement of online sleuths. A lot of it happens on Reddit, where people immediately went in and started like, this is the model number. We saw him on frame 72, and they completely, and they create their own news cycle by doing all this basically detective work in the background, right? And people are doing incredible detective work trying to see like, on things that are actually really useless. It's a waste of everybody's fucking time. But like they take two photos from the Kardashians and notice which one have been retouched, because in that one you see her coming out of a taxi and she didn't have that scar, but here she has it. Or, you know, like looking at the image kind of like compression and figure out which type of camera, and that wasn't taken on an iPhone and stuff like that.
I mean, that's a fun hobby, Alex, but at that point it's too late. Right.
But it is a fun hobby, but it is also, but like with the stuff that happens with Hasan, like actually shows that these things, these kind of like authenticity seekers are actually like pretty powerful, right? They kind of ruined his week. And so as we're seeing kind of the fear of the death of authenticity, there's always kind of like a counterforce that emerges. Mm-hmm. And this is one of them. So I think like now, the problem is this stuff was relegated to sub forms of sub cultures, right? But what AI allows you to do is to surface these things. Hey, go do some deep research. What's going on there? If I just saw CNN, or if I just read the stuff that Brian read, I wouldn't have all the context about the dog thing, right? And I only wanted it because I was going to talk about this on this podcast.
I read Taylor Lorenz about it.
But Taylor, fine, right? But you read Taylor Lorenz because you like Taylor Lorenz's takes
I
on
can't
stuff.
get enough Taylor Lorenz content. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the tools, as always, has been kind of a balance of the tools of deception versus the tools of truth seeking, and things are still in balance, more or less. And I think then part of that is because of the human energy that gets put behind trying to find truth in all the lies.
Okay, great. Should we get to good product?
Let's do it.
My good product is I went to Chateau Royale. I think it's a new restaurant in the Village on Thompson Street. And nice French restaurant. The server spoke with a very heavy French accent that was way heavier than I experienced in France.
Are you sure it was authentic?
I know.
I think people play it up.
90% sure it was not. She was like, bonjour. I was like, really? I was like, everyone in Paris is like, hey.
It doesn't matter as long as it felt right.
But the interesting part was when the table next to us left, they were turning it over and they put a new tablecloth on it. And then all of a sudden they produced an iron and were like ironing it with the smell of like a linen being ironed and the steam. And I had never seen that before in a restaurant. It's a very simple thing that is a real differentiator. So I think everyone has to find their...
Did you throw them your shirt and said, would you mind?
No, I didn't. But we stayed around because the next table then left, and I was like, I kind of want to experience this.
That's
this
good.
Again.
Yeah.
So ironing during.
I'm really looking forward. I'm going to London next week, and I'm going to that restaurant, Gymkhana.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You're gonna go to the basement? Don't they have a basement area?
I think so. Yeah.
That's it for this episode of People vs. Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. On that note, let's leave it there.
All right. Thanks, guys.